Welcome to the Awakened Energy podcast. I'm Tom So, the founder of Awakened Energy Healing and the MiddleWave meditation app. If you're new here, it starts with a free 5-minute session, which is in the description below. That's where most people's journeys with us begin. But today is all about Lisa from the Widow Diaries. She is our guest, and Lisa is a widowed mum of 3 who's been navigating life after losing her husband tragically to suicide at the age of 31. She shares the realities of grief, solo parenting, and starting over through her platform, the Widow Diaries. Lisa has built a community of people to try and help them feel less alone who are going through this sort of thing. So she has lots of deep learning and value in today's episode. So I just want to get started so Lisa can explain a bit more. So please, Lisa, take me back to who you were before loss. Who was a woman before the widow?
Thank you very much for having me. It's difficult to remember who I was before being a widow, because what happened is when I lost my husband, my memory is very, very foggy around that time. And you almost, like, your memory naturally blocks out a lot of happy memories as well. Like with my husband, I think that's a protection mechanism to like stop feeling any badness. But before I was a widow, my life was just on that normal trajectory. I grew up in East Kilbride. I'm an only child. It was just me, mum, and my dad with a small family. And now I actually wish that I had siblings to have more support around me. All my cousins actually live abroad. They all live abroad now. So there's a very, very small family. But I grew up, happy childhood. I've always had really, really good friends. I've still got friends that I've went all the way through nursery, primary and high school with. So I think friendships have been so, so important as well. So then it just worked hard in school. And then I went to dental school and became a dentist. And at dental school is actually where I met my husband, Alan, when I was 19. And dentist people will be surprised, but dentists and medicine people studying that, they're probably the ones that are out all the time. It was, you're out all the time. There's always just so much going on, very, very social. It's quite, I look back and it was just a lot of hard work, but then it was also a lot of fun as well. And it was 5 years I was there, and that's where I met Alan, and I stayed at home the whole way through, like at university as well. So I never had that experience, like being on my own, living by myself. And then when I graduated, I started my first job, and it was actually along the road from Alan. He was a dentist as well, but he was older than me, so we met a night out. It wasn't actually dental school. So he was on the road and we used to meet for lunch as well, like when I was my first job. And he would take me to like the bookies because he would be putting on bets and things like that in the football. I'd have a packed lunch in William Hill, honestly. But I would get like half an hour for my lunch. So I was like rushing so much, and we would like car share and things like that as well. So for that year, like he was there, and I felt like he gave me a lot of support as well in my career, even though we've never actually really worked together. We would occasionally work together later down the line. The hospital when we were doing emergencies, and I was honestly so embarrassed when I had to get him in to help me take a tooth out. You don't want your husband in. It's just, you feel very, very smug, very smug. But after that, moved in together in his flat. Then we got engaged before I started work as well on my graduation. And then the wedding was booked 2 years later. I was actually pregnant by wedding. Life just seemed to go like as I always kind of hoped and dreamed. You meet somebody, you get married and you have kids, and that was really the aim for me. Like I just wanted that happily ever after. I really, really wanted it, and I was just so happy that I had it. And I was just really content being a wife and being a mum. I never really had a lot of time on my own because I was with my mum and dad living, then moved out with Alan. So I was never really on my own, and really just kind of dedicated myself to being a wife and a mum. And when I look back, there wasn't really much else about me. I never really had any hobbies. And I think so many mums will feel that way, that they're just wanting to have kids, and then you have another kid 2 years later. Then we had our daughter 3 years later. It was just like 100 mile an hour, and we were just all for the kids as well. And then during that, I kind of worked as a dentist as well, and he was working too. I worked 3 days, he worked 5 days. So we were just had a really normal life. It was ordinary, but it was everything that I wanted. We enjoyed going holidays together. He loved Rangers Football Club. That was his big passion. So I literally had their diary in my phone, so I could tell where he would be, what was happening the weekend, who they were playing. It was every single game. He would finish work early and drive to Aberdeen to see them during the week. I mean, and he'd get back at like 2 a.m. It was insane. But yeah, that was his big passion. And yeah, he loved playing football with the boys as well. He became a football coach for my son as well. So yeah, we were just like honestly a normal family. That's the best way I can describe it. Nothing really like big or like special, just normal. And that's like all I wanted, but definitely.
Okay. So leading up to what happened, was there any signs? Did you ever speak together about mental health or anything like that?
It's something that I've never ever asked him, and obviously kicking yourself now, are you okay? Because on the outside he seemed absolutely fine. And colleagues that seen him probably more than me, they said the same. He was just very like kind of happy and work. Just there was nothing really like alarming at all. He had a friend that took his own life as well that he grew up with, and I think he really kind of was shocked by that. And you think that if somebody has experience of suicide and the effect on their family and friends, like he really struggled with that, because I think the friendship kind of drifted a little bit as well. You think that when you because he had seen it, had the effect of it, you think that he would never do something like that. There was nothing really there. He was like an anxious person, I'd say, but no more than me. Very, very laid back. But if something happened in work, you would kind of like worry a bit about that. And I think that's something that a lot of dentists do, because if something kind of goes wrong in work, you then start thinking the worst case scenario, oh, that patient might complain, then I might get sued. But there was nothing really big. And obviously, I asked his work when obviously he died, it ended happen, and there was absolutely nothing. There was no complaints. So there was just nothing really at all. There was nothing. He was happy. He was always joking, always having a laugh. There was nothing that really, really concerned me. And he never ever went to a doctor, so much so that you have to actually register as a doctor at your new address. He didn't do that in 10 years, and they actually sent him a letter saying, you have got to change address, your doctor, because you can't be registered here. He just never went. He never ever went, like at all. So there was nothing that would concern me. But obviously, hindsight is a great thing, and you start thinking like, oh, maybe was he anxious? Was he hiding things? Because yeah, that's quite difficult to kind of navigate after a suicide loss, the what ifs and where they're struggling. How did I not see that? Definitely.
It must be so difficult as well with hindsight and thinking back and thinking all the things that could have been
Yeah.
different. Like, how
Yes.
do you get past being stuck in that mind frame of thinking what ifs?
The what ifs are the hardest part. You just run round in circles. But the reality is, no matter what if, no matter what could have been changed, it's not going to change the outcome. You can't get them back. And you can, and you really can, really drive yourself crazy, keep yourself awake at night, just running round in circles. Something that's kind of like helped me is definitely turning to spirituality. I would say is really just believing that, and a lot of people might not agree with this, especially like somebody that's had a really sad loss, traumatic death. I'll always believe, even before Alan died, like everything happens for a reason. There's a reason for everything, even the bad things that happen in life. The bad things, we have to learn from it and take from it as well. But I feel with his death, the suicide, like it didn't have to happen, but it has happened. And I have to try and make peace with that as best I can for myself, and just feel that, okay, this has happened, but it's not the end. It's really just a chapter in our story, and hopefully we can be happy again. But don't get me wrong, it is so hard to have that mindset, especially when it's a suicide loss and not a death from a physical cause.
Your outlook and strength is absolutely inspiring, and I hope that it can resonate with anybody listening who is going through something similar.
Yeah.
So, those first sort of few weeks, what do people maybe tend to get wrong about what that actually feels like?
The first few weeks, it was just awful, 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 awful. And I think having 3 kids, you had to get out of bed every day. I think the first few weeks, nobody knows what to do or what to say, and I wouldn't know what to do or say either. So people don't know, even like my closest friends were like, we don't know whether to turn up at your house, we don't know whether to drop things off, we don't know what to get you. Like everybody was just in such a state of shock, because nobody really had a loss like that. I'm like the first person out of my friends to lose their husband, and being 31, it's quite rare to be a widow. But then through my journey, I have obviously met other ones now. Obviously, you're not alone, But nobody knows what to do, nobody knows what to say, and it's really, really difficult. And I think as well, like, I would quite often push people away and be like, "No, I don't need any help. No, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." But I think people will just take you at saying, "Oh, she said she's fine, she doesn't need anything." But I think, like, deep down, most people say they're fine and they're absolutely not fine. People that say, like, "If you need anything, let me know," my brain was complete mush. There was no way I was going to text anybody and say, "Oh, actually, I need this, I need that." So I think, like, people, and I wouldn't have done this as well until I'd went through the loss that I've had. You really need to show up and help. You need to show up and, like, either like drop things off and then just like keep checking in as well. People really, really check in naturally, and I would do the same as well at the very start of a loss. But you need probably more support. I would actually say a year, 2 years down the line, you have so much support at the start, but after the funeral, and it's completely natural, and I would do it as well. Like when my friend lost her dad, after the funeral, you just think, right, back to normal life. Then that's it, finished. And it's not. Grief is like it's a life sentence, and everybody is going to go through it because everyone's going to experience death in their life.
So, for somebody who is looking to support somebody going through grief, what can we do better rather than just simply asking, "Is there anything we can do for you?"
Yeah,
You said rather than just asking, just show up and do the thing potentially that you were thinking of doing anyway.
yeah, yeah. So things like, if say they've got a dog. And I think a dog would be a great thing to have for somebody because it gets you out of the house every day. You have to take the dog a walk every day. I think that is a lifeline for people. But in the midst of grief, you could show up at your friend's house or somebody else's house and was like, "I'll take the dog a walk for you," and then say, "Give me your washing, I'll take it, I'll do it for you." Drop off food, things like that. But it's difficult because I actually didn't eat a lot. So people are dropping off like 10 lasagnas and things, and they just sat in the freezer, and your appetite goes as well. So I actually think if someday I know I'd lost somebody, I would probably get them like a Marks and Spencer's voucher or like a Just Eat voucher is really good as well, because when you do start eating, you just want crap. You just want like comfort food. You really, really do. But I think the main thing is as well is just showing up and being there and sitting there and acknowledging, like, this is horrendous, this is so bad. I think as well it's only natural, and I would be the same. I would be like, "Oh, like, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay." Like, I think you just need to acknowledge like how bad the situation is and just sitting with them and being there, and that's it. But that's very difficult to do, and I've done it as well when I push people away, and you almost just want to kind of protect yourself because the suicide is so public and you feel like everybody's watching you. You almost just want to protect your kids in a little bubble, so you almost don't really want to see anybody as well. It's very difficult. And when you do start seeing people again, it's so hard because you just look around and it's like everybody's just doing their shopping, out a walk. Every life goes on as normal when your life is just completely imploded.
It must be so difficult. What that takes me back to is a situation when I was younger and my one of my closest friends at the time had lost his mum at a really young age. He must have just been a young teenager at the time. And I remember going round to his house to see him and his family at the time. I had no idea what to say. I had no idea what to say, what to do. I was there. It was just, the words were just gone for me. It was just such a confusing situation to navigate, even for somebody trying to approach how to comfort or support at that time. So you say just being there
Yeah.
is enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Being there enough. The worst thing you can say to somebody that's grieving is nothing. And even if you say like something that you think, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that," like, you're there, you're trying to help as long as you're just sitting with them, because that person might want to talk about their loved one. That person might not want to talk at all, but just appreciate the company. It's a very lonely place to be. And quite often as well, when I did see my friends, I want to talk about normal things. I want to talk about somebody got a new puppy. I want to talk about what's happening in their work, what's happening with us. You want to talk about normal things. You don't want to just talk about the sad and the trauma all the time. You want to be reminded of the person that you are as well, like with your friends and before the loss, definitely.
Okay, no, that's great advice. Is there anything else that for somebody who is trying to support somebody that they could, a bit of advice you could give for them to help the situation a little bit better?
Yeah, so obviously I lost my husband by suicide, but with grief as well, especially sudden grief, you're really not given a lot of information by the police or anything like that, because obviously there's so many people involved in the situation and different kind of specialities. So I think what it would be really good, and what I kind of do with people that message me on my social media, is I actually give them a list of things that I think would help in organisations. So even like things like their bereavement counselling, like the names of the places that I went, the counselling that I was offered at that time. A lot of counselling in charities is done like this over Zoom. So location, and that's really good, because obviously a lot of people in remote areas of Scotland, there's really not a lot of services there to help them through a loss like that. So I think as well, like just getting a list of like things like the organisations, people, charities, counselling, groups, support groups have been like the biggest thing for me. But it's really, it took a while to have one in Glasgow. A place called Here was set up November 2024. I lost Alan in March 2023. So for that time, there was no suicide support group in Glasgow. And a lot of people won't know about suicide support groups. Like your algorithm, unless you're looking at stuff, unless you're talking about things, like before I started really posting social media, I never got any content about suicide help for it and things like that. So people have to really like around them say, right, here's groups I think I will go to. It would really help you when the time is right. I think it's important, like, not to force people to go to these things, but sometimes it's getting through the door is the biggest thing. So you could then say, I'll come to doctors with you, I'll make that appointment with you, speak to GP, I'll come to support group the first night. A lot of support groups, the one that a place called Here, people are bringing like a friend or a family member with them for support, because it's so daunting walking into a room and you don't know anybody and you're there, and it's very, very vulnerable. But I think like that, and then realise that support, it isn't just like, oh, they'll be sad for 6 months and then they'll be fine, or they get back to work, they're doing fine. It's lifelong. And I think sometimes with people with grief, it can really hit them maybe the 2 or the 3 year mark, because after they died, they've went back to work, back to normal life, and they haven't had time to grieve or process what's happened. And then on top of that, with a suicide, you then have to process the trauma as well. So it's 2 separate things, the grief and then the trauma, and it's very difficult.
Can you reiterate for us the name of the organisation? Is it Here? HEAR?
So the organisations that helped me at the very start, there's one called Petal, just Flower Petal, PETAL. Some of Alan's family members, they got counselling straight away by them, and they also offered holistic therapies as well. There's also Chrissy's house as well. They're out Lanarkshire, kind of Wishaw way. So that was a bit far for me to travel with the kids in childcare. But the one that I go to personally, it's a place called Here. Such a nice name as well. So that's the one I go to, and they run every single Wednesday in Glasgow. They do. So people travel quite far to go to it, because there's really not a lot in other areas and remote areas. But it's set up like a meeting, and you go, you're in a circle. It's probably similar to an AA meeting. You go around, you can introduce yourself, say why you're there, but you also don't have to talk as well. And sometimes I'll get the most from a meeting when I've not actually spoken at all, and I'm listening to others, and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Seeing people that are further down the line than you, seeing people that are like, at that point, I was maybe like a year and a half into my journey, and you're like, how am I going to do this? And you've got the rest of your life to go. But seeing people that are 10, 20, 30 years down the line, it made me realise that you're not going to get over it. You're going to just have to carry the grief, and it'll kind of, as your life gets bigger, it'll kind of like soften the kind of like hurt from it as well. But it's something that like you carry your whole life, and seeing people that are still like living normal, happy lives, but they still have that grief, it's really comforting. That like, it's such an inspiration to me if they're further down the line than me, just to keep going, definitely, because they've went through and walked the same path that I have.
When did spirituality start coming in for you?
Spirituality, I was never spiritual, ever. I think because I'm a dentist and I've studied obviously a medical background, I just was very factual, very literal in school, sciencey. I just didn't really believe in it, but I also was quite scared of it as well. Death and spirits really, really scare me. So spirituality, it was actually my personal trainer. The gym that she used to work in, they had Lucy, who you had on last week. She's the best. She's changed my life. She's just honestly the sweetest soul. She said that, oh, she's offering Reiki, like maybe you could try that. And I had never really known much about it. I didn't know anything. So I made the appointment, and Lucy had absolutely no idea about my background, no idea what I'd been through, my loss. And then I made the appointment and I went in, and it was so powerful because this was December, right, and it was the first year. So I had went March, December, really doing nothing. I had maybe a little bit of counselling, but I think it was maybe too soon at that point. But I went into Reiki and I actually hadn't cried since before the funeral. And to think that your husband's dead and you haven't cried for 7, 8 months, I mean, people wouldn't believe it. But when I went in to see Lucy, she put her hands on me, like 2 hands on my head, and then literally just like something like changed inside me. It was like a switch, and I'd never felt it before. It was like I felt something because I was just completely numb, and literally just tears just streamed from my eyes. But it wasn't like a hysterical cry where you're like, like you're uncomfortable. I was like calm but crying, and I must have honestly cried like layers of tears because after it I was down in water. I was like, oh my god. But the whole session I just cried, and it was so powerful to have that release because I obviously needed to do it and I just wasn't able to cry. I think when you go through a sudden loss, your body can shut down a little bit and you can be very numb, so you can't feel any more pain. That's normal. But then grief and trauma in the body, it wreaks havoc. So even on the outside, I was functioning. I was actually doing really, really bad on the inside. Like your body will tell you, like I couldn't gain weight. I was losing so much weight. I had kidney issues, acne. I wasn't sleeping. So going to Lucy, like, and being able to grieve, it was probably one of the first steps. And like, no, I need to grieve, I need to cry. And that was just honestly so, so powerful. And I don't know if I hadn't went to Reiki, would I have cried since? Like, you just don't know.
That is so beautiful to hear that Reiki gave you and helped you with that release and sort of coming
Yes.
back into the body and allowing the body to let go of that trauma and that tension and contraction. It's an
Yeah.
incredible tool for that. Reiki's been
Yes.
a big part of my journey as well, so I can
Yes.
relate with you there. Do you have a sense of potentially where your husband is now? Like not necessarily religiously, but like in your bones, like or what do you feel?
So I never really thought about it before, but my beliefs have kind of changed a little bit. I do get signs. So I do believe that his spirit is free and is always around us, is always around anybody. I feel it's free and he's always around us. So Alan was cremated and he's buried in a graveyard. But I find it quite emotional to go, and it's difficult when my kids, some of them are quite hesitant to go as well. So I don't go there. I don't believe that he's just in the graveyard in the ground. I feel the spirit is always around, always with us, always kind of guiding us a little bit as well, definitely.
Amazing. How have your kids been on this journey and navigating motherhood alongside this at the same time? Because that's obviously an extra added pressure on top of such a tragic situation of that magnitude as well.
Yeah. I think in some ways motherhood is a blessing during this because I had a reason to get up every single day out of my bed and try and give them the best life I possibly can. I think if I never had the kids, I would have a lot of time to think about what happened and go over it again, again, again. Obviously, I have done that, but with the kids, life is just so busy that there's almost been no time to grieve. So having my kids is by far the biggest purpose, and to keep going for them and to keep trying for them and give them the best life. But the journey for them, it's not easy. And I feel that as they get older and more understanding, they'll have their grief will change as well. My daughter was only 10 months at the time, and I would take her to the grave at the very start and she would be able to say daddy and things. But then I showed her like a picture the other day and she was looking at it like not sure who he was. So, and obviously she was 10 months. She's not going to have any memories of him. But then sometimes she will look and say daddy as if like she can see him. And I do believe that young kids can actually see spirits, definitely. So it's kind of difficult for her. I'm not sure how she's going to go because at first I was like, oh, she might not need to grieve at all. But as she gets older and more understanding as well, then it's difficult because there'll be a piece of her that's like she just won't know or remember or understand and feel missing almost. My two sons, one is neurodivergent, one is neurotypical. They grieve very differently as well. My son that has autism, he was very, very angry, very, very like volatile at the start, really would get angry, like so, so angry at the slightest thing. And I think it's because he struggles processing his emotions. So that was a big part. But I do think that it's healthy for kids to get their emotions out. And I spoke to a widow who's a lot further down the line than me, and she's got two kids, and she said that one, when her husband died, one kid went back to do their homework, never spoke about it again, and other kid was like punching holes in the wall. And she said that the kid that was like punching holes in the wall, he's actually coped a lot better in adulthood, and he's not had to any more counselling, whereas the other kid is in counselling, kind of getting more support. So I think like it's not necessarily a bad thing, kids reacting and getting their emotions out, because they have to, otherwise it will be like us and just kind of stored in. And my son, he was 4 at the time, he's neurotypical, so he was very, very upset, like cried for weeks and weeks and weeks, and he just couldn't process death. I don't think either of them could at the time. A 4-year-old understanding death is difficult. He would ask me every day, where's daddy? Is he working? When's he coming home? Where is he? He would explain that he had died. I would get upset, and the next day would start all over again. He just couldn't understand that he wasn't coming home. And the school told me this would be the case. Children, they can't process death. It'll be way further down the line. It'll just kind of click like he's not coming home. And it's really difficult because with a suicide, I struggled to even see Alan's name. I struggled to look back at pictures. So people say it's important to keep their memory alive. But I think when you're going through such anger and just trying to get through the day, it's difficult to do that for the children. But their grief, the three of them, I'd say they're all doing well now. There's definitely ups and downs, and you do find yourself questioning, like, is this grief or is this normal for a 9-year-old? Like, definitely. But I think like if somebody saw us out in public, they wouldn't probably think twice that what we've actually been through. They would just probably assume like, oh, the husband's working or something like that. So they're getting there, but I know that it's going to be a journey, and especially I can imagine teenage years being quite difficult as well.
In relation to your points there, do you have any advice for somebody who maybe has a neurodivergent child or is neurodivergent in regards to helping them process their grief?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is it's so important is to actually get a diagnosis. And I strongly think that Alan was autistic. I really think looking back, and so many people now that are like our age, they'll have kids that have autism, and then everybody, like Alan's mum was always like, oh, that was just like Alan. Alan always did that. It's fine. And then it's not fine. Like the school picked up quite quickly, like that he was on the spectrum as well. I think it's really important kids to be picked up that they are neurodivergent, because then they'll get support and then they can understand their brain. And I think my son used to say, like, why do I not want to go to this party? Why do I not want to do this? I don't understand it. But then it's like, no, that's just you. It's overwhelming, and that's fine. I think they understand who they are. They'll feel more comfortable in their own skin. And I think as well, a lot of parents will feel like, I don't want a label on my kid. Like there's some schools near me where 50% of the kids in the mainstream school have got autism or ADHD. It is so, so common. And when you think back to when we were at school, there was one kid in the class that had autism, so nobody else was diagnosed. And I think as undiagnosed autism, it's very, very dangerous, because I think as people get older, they won't know how to cope just with life stresses. It's difficult. I think when you're autistic, you like a routine, everything. You have school, you go through school and that routine, working as well. But when life has unpredictability, when you have future losses and stresses of life and having kids and things as well, it's really, really difficult for them. So I think the main thing, as I would say, is make sure that they're going to go through a diagnosis process. And then the thing is as well, and just like accept as well that like they might not want to talk about it as well. I don't really push grief or push the subject onto my kids. I don't like in a normal day being like, oh, remember this. I'll sometimes say like, oh, daddy like that, daddy like this, but I won't push it. And I think at the start, I was really trying to get counselling for the kids. And my son just said, he was like, I don't want pulled out my class. I want to be with my friends. I want to just do that. So I think that just really kind of communicate with your child what they need and what they want. And you might think like they need to do counselling, they need to do this, need to do that, but they might not want that. I think as well, there's a lot of change as well. A lot of them kind of stopped and started extracurricular clubs. And I honestly just said, if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. It was difficult for me to force your child to do a club they don't want to do when you've got two other kids by yourself as well. And I used to really want them to go to like school discos and things like that and like parties. But see now, if they don't want to do it, I'm like, don't do it, don't do it. And I think you change that. I think before you're like, oh, they need to do this, need to do that. They don't need to do it at all. You need to just listen to like what they want to do. And I think the most important thing is your presence. That's it. Doesn't matter. Because I used to be like, right, need to do this, need this day out, constantly keep them busy. But as long as you're present, they're honestly, my kids are happy just when they're playing with friends in the house. That's it.
Amazing, amazing. I want to touch upon sometimes in spirituality and New Age spiritualism, some people can sort of tend to use phrases that maybe sometimes can minimize pain or what people are going through. Can we just touch upon that slightly?
Yeah, of course. Oh, sorry, if I say the phrases,
Yeah, or is there anything that you came across that?
like people saying things, spirituality, that to try and make you feel better.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes spiritual phrasing or things, the way that stuff's coming across, maybe they're trying to be helpful, the way it's packaged is actually not helpful.
Think it's difficult, but people will say, and I've said it already in the interview, it's on the podcasting, people will say, everything happens for a reason. And they say that. And I think, when you're struggling to process the death, and if it's a death and it's been like the person has gone well before their time, like they weren't old age, it's really, really difficult. And people will say as well, like, oh, they're out of pain as well, they're not in any pain anymore. But obviously, if that's a physical illness, you understand that. But when it's a mental illness, and when, like in Alan's case, it was clearly hidden, it's difficult to understand that, because you're like, I didn't even realise he was in any pain at all. And the pain, and people say with suicide, they're out of their pain, but the pain for all of us, it just begins, and it's you have to deal with that. It's difficult, and people saying as well, like they're in a better place now. Like you that's not helpful. The best place for us is obviously with his family, so that's quite difficult. But people, these phrases, you hear them in like TV, films. They're universally said, universally spoken, and I think it's just people don't know what to say, so they'll try and say anything to try and like help. Definitely.
Okay, that's really insightful to know. And your point of view there is actually really like enlightened me in regards to what I would say or help someone support somebody, because those are kind of off the cuff things that you would just say. But when you're thinking about
Mhm.
your point of
Yeah.
view and how you're feeling at the time, because there's obviously anger there. No, it's
Yes.
not better for them to be there or them to feel like this. It's the situation is horrible. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you sorry.
no, so I find some of the things as well, people say with a suicide loss, like suicide loss is more complex. But some people said to me, like, oh, if we didn't do it now, we would have done it another time, so it's good that he's done it now. People say that, and people say as well, like, it's good that he done it, because if he didn't do it, you would have to live every single day with the fear they would do it again. And I actually never thought about that. And it's like, I think anybody that's lost somebody by suicide, they would have walked to the end of the earth to keep them here. They would have done anything to keep them here. So it's difficult. I would much rather, and obviously with Alan, but any family member, any friend, have them here and try and support them the best I can, rather than thinking of they're a burden. I'd rather just that was not nothing to do. And I think that's really difficult as well. But again, I think it's people just trying to help in the best way they can.
Yes, it's about just kind of be mindful of what you're saying and just be there, show up, and help as much as you can
Yeah.
in that circumstances. And
Yeah.
get a good voucher so you can get something nice to eat in that moment of time. That's such a good thing to do. I really like that advice.
Oh, thanks.
I want to touch upon you speaking about sort of feeling potentially his presence and signs that are
Yeah.
occurring and things like that. Is there anything that you could share with us?
Yeah, so at the very start, I didn't get many signs at all. So when he first died, and I think there's almost like a veil everybody has. So if you don't believe in it, if you're not really looking for it, or not even looking, but if you're not open to receiving any signs, you're not going to get any signs, because any signs you do have, you'll just dismiss them and be like, a feather, that's not that. But we've had loads of signs over the years, and sometimes there'll be quite a lot. They usually kind of come quite a lot and run up to a big date, like an anniversary, Christmas time. Um, Always see white feathers, and I think that's just so comforting. That's something that I probably believe more than like the robin kind of like example as well. So white feathers always, like, I mean, one time I was in a GP surgery waiting to go in, maybe this was the first year Alan died, and we're just sitting there waiting, and then I looked at the floor, there was nothing there. And then I looked like 5 minutes later back at the floor, and there was a massive white feather in the middle of the floor. And I was like, how on earth did that get there inside? I've seen feathers falling from the sky on the kids, lots of them, and it's always really comforting. But it's funny because my son that's got autism, he is just not about signs at all. He just like whatever, doesn't believe in it at all, because he's very literal minded and everything needs a scientific explanation. So that was probably a big sign. Other signs as well that I've had, because there has been a few, usually music as well. Alan loved 80s music. And not long after his funeral, one of the songs we had was Don't You Forget About Me. That was used in a big campaign by and I seen it all the time on TV, and I was just like so like suddenly after his death, after not hearing the song for years. And then even just there, the anniversary was the 7th of March. The day before, I was at a gym class and that song came on. That song came on and I was just like, oh my goodness, like it's not a song you would normally hear. It's not a current song. So he loved 80s music. And I went to gym just before here. I heard like Lionel Richie come on. He loved Lionel Richie. So even things like that as well, like, because I didn't like 80s music, so it wouldn't be something I listened to or it would come up in your kind of Spotify, but he loved it. So things like that. Other things as well, like I took the boys to London in June. And I feel animals are quite a big one, but it's not the animals you'd expect. Obviously, it's lovely listening to a wee robin. Sometimes I was talking to somebody on the phone that had lost their son, and I'll turn down and there was two robins together, and I was like, oh, like one for me, one for you. But when I was going down to London, when we got on the plane, and I was quite nervous taking the boys away by myself, there was a ladybird on the window of the seat we were at, and I was just like, how was that here? Like, I don't really see ladybirds often. And then when we were in London, they were just like all over my kids all the time, and they would hang around and be on their skin and things like that. It was really, really lovely to see. Also butterflies, and they'll follow my kids. I think that's a really nice one, seeing animals. And I think there was one time I had Reiki, and then I came home and I literally looked out and a squirrel was just sitting right outside the car door looking up at me. I was like this. But every animal has got like a spiritual meaning as well. So yeah, definitely there's lots of signs. And music's probably the biggest one. Music and smells are quite emotional. But yeah, there's been lots of signs I think we all have, definitely.
Yeah, when we're on the sort of start the spiritual path and we become more aligned and we open ourselves up more, these signs start coming in and synchronicities start coming in.
Yes.
And it just, there's no doubting that there is messages being given. I would
Yeah.
like to ask you, what made you decide to start sharing this like publicly? And was it like a conscious choice or did it kind of just start happening?
I think it kind of just started happening. I don't actually think that I gave too much thought behind it. And even now that I'm kind of been doing it since last June, so it'll be coming up to a year soon, I don't really have a week where I'm like, I'm going to film this, I'm going to do that. I really just film and kind of just see what happens. And because there's some days as well, like if you're kind of struggling with grief, you do not want to sit in front of a camera and film or anything like that. So I think it's really important to have those days as well where you're like, I don't feel like posting, I don't feel like doing anything. But for me, I think because it's not a job, it's more like I'd say a hobby, and like I feel like you don't have that pressure to post, that pressure to kind of give anything that you kind of feel you're not ready to give as well. So I just started it, I think, last June, and my friend does social media, so I kind of spoke to her about it. Like I quite like to like share bits of my life as like a young widow. I felt that the content that people consume is really, really important. And before like I started sharing, I was probably following people that were like in their 20s for like their fashion, their lifestyle, but that isn't going to relate to me in any way because like I'm like a single mum of three. I always looked for widows and I found a few, but they're kind of like more, they were in America or maybe they had like remarried. I just couldn't really relate to them at that point. The other thing as well is that like I actually struggle to relate to widows that didn't lose a husband by suicide. I feel there's a big difference with that as well. I used to go to like widow meetups, and when you were with widows that had lost their partner to cancer, for example, I just felt like I didn't belong there. I felt I didn't fit in. And I would also, like, this is so terrible to admit, but I was also like jealous of the fact that their death was this and mine was that almost, which is so, so bad. But I think it's because of stigma surrounding it as well. So I struggled and I felt quite lonely. And I think up until I started posting, I really didn't speak about it at all. When he died, like on my own social media, I didn't post a picture of Alan until 2 years passed. And I think that's really important for my suicide loss. It's difficult to look at photos, videos, memories, because you're obviously looking at them like, why did you do this? We were so happy. You were happy there with such a nice life. I deleted my Facebook as well. Like, and my social media was really just nothing to do with Alan. It was really just like me and the kids probably looking like we had an okay life. But social media, it is like people, and everyone does it, and you just post your best bits. And I think it's quite difficult, even just my own personal one at the time, when you're seeing like family photos, like family Christmases, and you're like, like I can't relate to it anymore. So I was like, why don't I just like set one up myself and kind of see if there's anybody else out there it's a similar path. And there's actually so many people, and so many people around the world have got in touch as well, kind of walking a similar journey as well. Like it's, you say it's amazing to connect with everybody, but it's obviously heartbreaking the reason why we've kind of all found each other as well. But there is hope in that community as well. But I really don't give it much thought. I think I just kind of fell into it, and I feel that once I started talking about it, I couldn't stop talking about it. But I do realise there might come a point where I'm like, no, I've kind of spoken about this enough. I don't want to talk about this anymore. So I know that point might come as well, definitely, as life moves on.
You speaking about this and sharing it and that communication and giving this a platform in that way and you being so open, it could help so many people, honestly. So I put my hand on my heart and
Thank you.
commend you for what you're doing and being so brave.
Yeah.
And when we share our most traumatic moments and we are open and we are vulnerable, the power in that is absolutely incredible. And you've got such a great energy that I can feel from you and your
Thank you.
positivity and your strength as well. The
Yeah.
listeners will be able to feel this too.
Oh.
I want to ask you, what do you most want sort of widows or especially even maybe young mothers to know that maybe nobody told you at the time?
I think people telling you that it's going to be okay, everybody will say it'll be fine, but unless they have walked a similar journey, you're not going to believe them because you're like, what do you know about it? Because you're not a widow, you have a husband, like things like that. But I think, I tell people like it's going to be hard. I think for me to tell someone like, oh, it's fine, it's really easy raising because of myself, being widowed, it is difficult. It's a difficult journey, but I do find joy every single day in something. And I think that's what you need to focus on. And it's like, I appreciate so much the little things, like just appreciate like having a cup of tea, sitting with my kids while they're like watching TV, reading my story. I appreciate that so much more. Even like watching the sunset, like the weather, like when it's a nice day, I appreciate nature so much more. I think you really have to like appreciate the small things because it's difficult and there's definitely days where I do feel quite low and down, but that's normal. You can't feel happy all the time. You're going to have hard times. So I think the main thing is that things, it will be okay. It's not a life you plan, but things will be okay. It will work out. I used to think as well that like, the solution, not a solution, but like the way that like widows kind of find happiness again. I used to think that it was by meeting somebody else and remarrying. And you do kind of see that kind of like in the public, you'll see people like that maybe are like celebrities like moving on, not moving on, but just like they found love again. And like people think, well, that's them fixed, that's them cured, they're not grieving. They will still be grieving. But I also think as well that it's so important to find that self love by yourself and be comfortable being on your own when you go through a trauma. It almost like you can attract more trauma because your brain is just in that fight or flight mode. So unless you do the work and heal, you then might just attract not just a romantic partner, but friends and family that are maybe causing more chaos because that's what you're used to. So I think it's just so important to just really just focus on yourself and like almost like just kind of cut out all the noise, focus on yourself and your kids, and it will work out. And life is, they definitely have hard points, but everybody has hard parts in their life. And you remember, like, you had hard parts in life when you're married as well. Definitely. So, yeah.
So self-love, self-care, start to do the healing work. Don't bottle everything up, keep everything in the body, communicate, let that energy move,
Yes.
find
Yes.
joy in those moments and those little moments and keep getting up and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But then if there's days where it's like, I just want to stay in my bed all day, and I'm quite guilty of that. I think when your body needs a rest, it needs a rest as well. And I used to always say yes to everything as well. I think it's so important to say no. Like, I just need to, take a rest, have a weekend myself. I used to like have to be busy all the time because you're trying to outrun the grief, outrun the trauma. If you sit still, that's when you feel it and that's when it's uncomfortable. But I think it's really important to sit still, to feel your emotions as well, because when you're numb, you're not going to feel happiness at full potential. But when you start feeling sad, that's when you can feel happy again as well. So yeah, definitely.
Yes, I really can relate with when we bring stillness into our life where we start meditating and allow the body and the mind to start healing and relaxing, that this
Yes.
brings up all the stuff that we're repressing in the body and the mind, and it's not comfortable. So you tend to find people who are dealing with a lot of trauma and stuff, they're so busy. They just
Yes.
don't stop. They
Absolutely.
don't
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 stop.
want to sit still. When they do start sitting still, it starts bringing up all that stuff. So it's
Absolutely.
hard for people, isn't it?
Yes. It's uncomfortable sitting in it. And I think life is so fast paced. And I think obviously with 3 kids, I am going to be very, very busy. But I think it's important to have that time by yourself and also get to know yourself and enjoy time by yourself as well. Because I think as well, like you're scared to be alone, you're scared to be left with your own thoughts. But as you kind of get more and more comfortable with it, I think that's where the kind of healing and power comes from as well, definitely.
Amazing. So 3 years on, 3 kids are with you, they're watching on. Who's the woman that you're becoming on the other side of all this?
Well, see, the thing is, you said you've used the word becoming because I still think that that was probably how I would describe myself now. Becoming. I feel I'm in the kind of halfway point between who I was and who I'm becoming. And I think grief changes you in every single way. And it's very easy to become angry and bitter through it and jealous of other people as well. So I think that, when those emotions settle in, don't like push them away, but also it's really, really important to try and just be the best version of yourself as well through it. Because if you're a kind of positive person. I'm not positive all the time, but if you try and think positively, then your life will be positive, your outlook in life as well. And then it's some things like, oh my God, my house is a total mess. But then I'm like, well, I'm very lucky to have a house to tidy. Oh my God, like it's so full on with the kids. I'm so lucky to have kids and that they're healthy and that they're running about crazy as well. So it's just your kind of the way you look at things as well. So I think I think that's the way I would describe myself. I'm just becoming the person I'm going to be.
I'm so excited to see where your journey leads to and all the
Thank
stuff that
you.
you're going to build and the support that you're giving to everybody at the moment. Would you like to talk a bit about the Widow Diaries, and is it a platform you've built or just give a
Yeah,
bit more
yeah.
information?
Yeah, just a social media channel. Just a social media channel. So on Instagram, and that was the social media like app that I use just like personally. So I have a separate one for that for sharing everything. And then my friend that works in social media, that's her job. She said TikTok is actually very good for your reach because you can reach usually more people on rather than Instagram. So she was like, I would actually set up a TikTok. So I've got them both. And yeah, I just honestly I don't really think of what I'm going to post, and it's a mixture of just days in the life, just kind of showing that you kind of have like a normal life, and also showing the vulnerability and the hard bits as well. Because I think if you come on and just talk about I'm fine, everything's great, it's not really relatable to people that are going through grief and loss, because everybody going through what I've went through, they're going to have hard times, and it's not going to be like I used to think that, oh, after a year I'll be fine, I'm back to normal again. It's not. So I just, started sharing, and I don't really know like where it's going to go. I think right now I'm happy just sharing. I definitely would like to do more like in terms of work with like suicide, also the neurodiversity aspect as well, and how neurodiversity undiagnosed, there's such a risk. I'd like to do more work with that. But yeah, like just like getting the message out as well, hopefully helping others feel less alone, and hopefully as well helping people that are struggling get help, because they can actually see what it's like being left behind, and that would be their families as well. I think that's really important. I really, really love writing. I've wrote a fiction book, but I feel in a few years' time, I would really, really love to actually write like a self-help book for getting through a suicide loss, being widowed, because it's so different to being widowed any other way. But I also think, I'm at the 3 year mark. If I came on here and was like, oh, I've wrote a book on how to get through this, like I am still very much going through everything right now. There's no way that like that's me, I'm fixed, I'm totally fine. So I think that's a book maybe for like 5 to 10 years in the line. But then I do realise at that point as well, I might also be like, no, I'm not talking about this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. But that's something I'd really, really like to write. But I think like writing fiction is an outlet for my grief, definitely. And it means you can be quite creative as well. I think you need to find an outlet, especially because right now I am a stay-at-home mum.
Incredible advice and words, Lisa. Thank you so much. So, just to leave us, could you give us some final words on couples who are currently in relationships still with their partner, to give them maybe a bit more gratitude and appreciation of what they have at the moment? Because I think we take our partners and our life circumstances for granted sometimes because it's just
Yes.
our normal. So, could you part us with a bit of advice?
Yeah, you're so right in saying that, because before Alan died, I felt I took everything for granted as well, and how lucky that I was, how lucky we were as a family. really the things we worry about, they don't matter at all. The things we worry about at all, they just, it's not important. The little things, like, I think the main thing is just, I wish if I could go back in time, I would check in more emotionally. I felt that Alan was quite closed off emotionally and didn't really show much emotion. If I could check in more, I would have done that, definitely. I think it's just really important to like tell them, like if I could speak to Alan now or like knew that he was going to die, I would just tell him how much I loved him, how much I was like happy, how much like like he helped like bringing the kids into the world, being an amazing dad. Also just you know, how hard he worked as well, like just be grateful for that like as well. So yeah, just basically just show your appreciation, because that's something I struggle with as well, that I don't really think I got to do that because he died suddenly. I think you have to kind of live each day, not as if it's your last, but definitely just like really show people, tell people you love, how much you love them, tell people how much you appreciate them as well. But yeah, I think that's definitely made me appreciate more in my life as well, in a weird way too, definitely.
So if you're listening today, please tell somebody close to you that you love them. When you see your partner, your kids, or whoever today, give them a massive cuddle. Let's be more open with each other. Let's communicate better, especially anybody who is more closed off or you haven't been speaking about these things you're bottling up, even start writing them down to start with.
Yeah.
Let's make talking about death more normalised, especially in the West. And I want to
Yeah.
thank everybody for listening. And Lisa, I want to thank you so much for this incredible conversation. You're great. Your energy is great. And good luck to everything that you're going to do in the future.
Thank you.
I'm going to include all of any support links, organizations, and all the information so that people can see all the cool stuff that you're doing below in the description. And thanks all the listeners, and we'll see you again for the next episode. And if you want to get involved with all the stuff we do at the MiddleWave Meditation, start with a free 5-minute session, which will be in the link below, and that'll start your journey off. So thank you everybody, and we'll see you again for the next episode.